Sharps rifles are known for their quality, and even the guns that didn't sell well are still considered collectible. Where did you get these?
I worked at General Dynamics 35 years. I just retired not too long ago.
So were you a test pilot?
No, sir. Just a mechanic.
Imagine kicking off the episode with a piece of Civil War history, an 1861 Sharps & Hankins experimental rifle. Rick immediately explained that the Civil War sparked an explosion of gun innovation, leading to tons of prototypes. The seller wanted $3,000, bragging there were only 700 to 750 made. Rick wasn't sure. It looked like the stock had been sanded. He decided this mystery weapon needed an expert's eyes.
1861 Sharps & Hankins experimental rifle.
That's pretty cool. It was most likely some weird prototype. Hey, do you know how many they made?
Somewhere between 700 and 750 of them, between 5 different models.
The seller shared his story. He found the rifle in another pawn shop and grabbed it knowing it was special. Rick pointed out Sharps rifles were known for incredible accuracy. So accurate the term sharpshooter came from them. Still, Rick was cautious. He suspected modifications, making the price tricky. With the Civil War context, though, this rifle had serious intrigue.
The Civil War just broke out. We basically didn't have anything near of the army that we needed to actually go to.
Enter Sean, the firearms expert. He explained how this gun simplified loading during the war, letting skilled soldiers fire multiple shots a minute compared to older single-shot rifles. The name Sharps carried weight, but then he spotted a problem. The barrel length was odd, not matching production standards. That suggested modifications, lowering value.
Sean down to shed some light on. So we have a Sharps experimental rifle.
I love seeing things like this because at the beginning of the Civil War,
Sean gave his verdict, $1,500 to $2,000. The seller frowned. He wanted way more. Rick offered $1,000, barely budging to $1,050. The seller held out for $1,500. No deal. The seller left frustrated, claiming the expert undervalued it. Rick stayed calm. Better to miss a deal than overspend on a risky antique.
What do you think it's worth?
it's a solid $1,500 to $2,000 gun.
So, but it's most likely modified. It's a modified rifle.
Next up, a man brought in a set of French hand-shaped door knockers, claiming they were 18th century antiques. Corey admired the style, but joked that as severance gifts, they were odd. The seller got them after 30 years of work. The man wanted $1,800, but Corey wasn't impressed.
They have nice French antique door knockers. You worked for them for how long?
30 years.
And this was your severance package?
Corey explained how in Muslim countries, paired door knockers serve different purposes, one for men, one for women. Each made distinct sounds to keep interactions proper. They were also believed to ward off evil spirits. Cool history, but Corey knew the market wasn't strong. He offered $200 for both.
So, and it would make a completely different sound. You know, the smaller hand would be something that a woman would use, and it would make a different sound.
The seller pushed for $500, but Corey only went to $250. The man reluctantly agreed. Corey knew they'd sell eventually, but not for big bucks. The seller admitted he was disappointed, but said at least he could treat his wife to dinner. Sometimes you just take the small wins.
What are you looking to get out of them?
For this one, I was asking $1,200. For this one, $600.
I can tell you right now, man, that kind of money on these two things is just not there.
Then came one of the coolest items, a mid-1800s chess table with more than 500 pieces of inlaid wood. The seller wanted $5,000, describing the incredible craftsmanship and unusual design featuring a Fiji mermaid carving. Rick was intrigued but needed more proof of origin.
We got here.
This is an amazing chess table.
Okay.
It's from the 1840s.
Rick called in the Beard of Knowledge. To mess with him, he even brought a real Fiji mermaid sideshow piece, creepy monkey and fish combo and all. The expert confirmed the table's design was inspired by that imagery, likely made for an individual fisherman as a gag. But without a maker's mark, it lost serious value.
So when I got a thing like this in the shop, I call it the Beard of Knowledge. Hey, you bring donuts?
No, you called me about a Fiji mermaid, so I thought I'd bring one over with me.
The expert couldn't name a maker, calling it anonymous but cool. Rick offered $500. The seller, heartbroken, wanted way more and refused to sell. Sometimes loving an item means keeping it. Rick shrugged. It was neat, but not $5,000 neat. No deal, just an awkward goodbye.
It was talk about the time period rather than the maker on it.
Okay, thanks, man.
Not a problem. Unfortunately, in this particular case, I cannot identify.
Finally, the highlight, a 1589 Elizabethan military manual titled Instructions for the Wars. The seller explained it contained both a strategy guide and one one of the earliest fortification books. He asked $14,000, claiming it was the first complete English copy. Rick, fascinated, brought in Rebecca, the book expert.
So where did you find this thing?
I bought this from an important private collection in America. I was very excited to find it because it's a very rare book. It's actually, as far as I can tell.
Rebecca was thrilled. She revealed playwright Christopher Marlowe had copied passages from this very book for his famous play, Tamburlaine. The book even had intact folding plates of battlefield formations. Extremely rare, she valued it at $12,000. Rick's poker face hid his excitement.
Great.
All right, hang on for a few minutes. I'll be right back.
I'm really excited that they're bringing in Rebecca today. She's sort of in the same field as me, and I know she's going to be really excited to see it.
Negotiations kicked off. Rick offered $8,000. The seller pushed for $9,000. Rick went to $8,600. Final offer. The seller, torn but practical, agreed. He planned to reinvest the cash in new finds. Rick walked away thrilled. Elizabethan spy history and Shakespearean connections for undervalue? That's a massive win.
An old, valuable, important book.
All right, so I'm definitely not going to give you 14 grand.
Okay. You know, she said it's extremely rare.
By the end, the episode had it all. A Civil War rifle with too many questions, bargain-priced antique door knockers, a chess table too strange to sell, and a Queen Elizabeth-era book tied to Marlowe himself. Rick showed when to walk, when to spend, and when to play it cool.
Sideshow had to have one. They were making these up by the dozens.
Hey, people are willing to pay, I guess.
Imagine stumbling across the holy grail of muscle cars, a 1965 Shelby Cobra. That's what happened when a tow truck driver brought a half-complete Cobra body into the shop. He'd impounded it, and after 90 days it became his bylaw. Even better, he was paid to tow it away. If it's authentic, this guy basically won the pawn shop lottery. Rick knew they needed an expert to verify.
So this is the Shelby race car you called me about?
Yep.
Where's the rest of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a whole car.
No, it's a half car. Coming to the pawn shop today.
The seller admitted the Cobra was missing everything. No engine, no transmission, no wheels, no steering wheel, not even an interior. Just a bare body and frame. Still, he insisted the aluminum body proved it was real. Rick wasn't convinced. With so many replicas floating around, he wasn't about to drop cash without proof. He called in Shelby expert Mark, someone who could separate replicas from the real deal.
Left this.
Exactly.
Carroll Shelby is the king of the muscle car. He invented it, then he perfected it. A fully restored.
Mark arrived and began his inspection. He noted the suspension, fender lips, and hood scoop all looked correct. Corey hovered nearby, fascinated, while Rick stayed skeptical. Then Mark revealed the only surefire way to confirm the chassis number. Wiping away dust, he found the golden ticket CSX. That meant authentic Shelby Cobra. Suddenly, this bare frame wasn't junk. It was the real thing. Value, about $60,000 as is.
So after making a few phone calls, I was able to get a hold of the dealer here in Vegas.
I'm the president and owner of Nevada Classics and Shelby Cars Northwest.
Rick's poker face returned when the seller asked $50,000. Rick countered at $25,000, pointing out it would take $100,000 more to restore. The seller refused, pushing for $45,000. Rick stood firm at $30,000 cash. After hesitation, the seller gave in. Rick walked away grinning. This was a once-in-a-lifetime score. Corey couldn't believe they just bought a Shelby Cobra off a tow truck guy.
I don't need 60, but I'll take 50.
Bet you would.
Yeah, no.
I mean, for the love of God, you got it for nothing.
Doesn't matter what, I got it.
Later, a man brought in what he thought was one of the first clocks ever made. Rick chuckled and corrected him. It was actually a World War II ship's chronometer used for navigation at sea. These precise instruments help sailors calculate longitude, and if they weren't accurate, ships could miss destinations by thousands of miles. The seller wanted $1,000, convinced it was valuable. Rick, cautious, offered $500.
Probably over 150 years.
Okay.
And
that's cool because the clock's not 150 years old. You have no idea what you got here, do you?
The seller countered, pushing for more. They finally agreed at $700, though Rick admitted it was a gamble since it wasn't running. He figured it might be an easy fix or a total disaster. The seller left satisfied while Rick planned to call in an expert. Either way, Rick knew he'd taken a chance worth the risk.
They were lost.
Okay.
These chronometers had to be precise. They were off just by a little bit. You could miss your destination by over 1,000 miles.
Rick brought brought in Ferdinand, a clock specialist. Ferdinand carefully opened it up and immediately found the problem. Cork wedges had been left inside during transport, locking the mechanism. He removed them, and the chronometer ticked back to life. Rick's gamble paid off. The piece was now worth $2,500. Rick called it the easiest $1,800 he'd ever made.
Clocks are unique because in a way they're functional pieces of art. Ooh, a little beauty.
Yeah, chronometer.
Then came something prehistoric. A man walked in with a collection of shark teeth, including a massive megalodon tooth. The seller had collected them since childhood and asked for a $1,000 pawn loan. Rick explained the pawn process and agreed. Either the man would repay the loan, or Rick could keep the teeth and sell them for triple.
Someone found your missing teeth.
I'm coming into the pawn shop to try and pawn my shark teeth today. It's a collection I've had for a long time. Means a lot to me. I don't want to get rid of them, but I do need money because I just started my own business.
Rick marveled at the megalodon tooth. Measuring over 6 inches, it suggested a shark nearly 80 feet long, bigger than a bus, scarier than Jaws. Rick grinned, telling Corey this was a win-win deal. The seller left happy with his loan, and Rick felt confident either way he'd come out ahead.
And from the size of this tooth, the guy was probably bigger than a city bus.
That was a big shark.
Right here from the gum line right there, 1 inch equals like 12 to 15 feet.
Meanwhile, Corey and Chumlee checked out a quad-line Cobra Kite. The seller explained its 4-string control allowed tricks and stunts never possible with single-line kites. Chumlee tried flying it and, predictably, nearly crashed it into a pole. Corey laughed as Chum insisted he had it under control. Negotiations stalled when Corey decided it wasn't worth it.
I called the pawn shop because I'm trying to sell my Cobra 1.8 power kite. I started flying kites when I was about 8 years old. I made my first kite out of a paper bag.
So what can you tell me about the kite?
The really interesting thing about this particular kite, the Sky Tiger 1.8, is
the seller asked $75 and Corey passed. Still, the seller walked away $75 richer after unloading it, while Corey and Chum debated whether Chum's flying skills were to blame. Spoiler, they were. Another comic pawn shop moment ended with Chumlee sulking and Corey smirking.
Before we negotiate?
By all means. But the kite's quite powerful. They can pick, a 200, 300 pound man up into the air.
Getting to watch Chumlee try to fly this kite is going to make it well worth coming out here.
Back at the shop, Rick checked in on the Shelby Cobra Restoration. Mark revealed the body had been painted Shelby blue, the interior installed, and a carbureted engine chosen to save costs. Rick admitted he was already in the car for $100,000 but felt confident. Worldwide, the Shelby name could push it to $159,000.
Since we bought the 1965 Shelby Cobra, Mark's been building it. So today, we're on our way down to see how everything's coming along.
Oh my God.
Finally, it was racetrack time. The old man insisted on driving first, but barely got the Cobra past 30 miles per hour. Corey and Chumlee heckled him, saying they could hear Carol Shelby crying. Then Rick took the wheel, showing the car's true speed. He loved it, but admitted he'd be happiest once it's sold. That's the pawn shop life. Gamble big, risk big, and hopefully profit big.
The other day, Mark installed the engine in our 1965 Shelby Cobra, and now we're on our way to the racetrack to give it a test run.
So guys, before we deliver a car to a customer, we always test drive it.
The episode kicks off with a bang when a seller walks in holding the very first issue of Rolling Stone magazine from 1967, featuring John Lennon on the cover. Rick is immediately interested, explaining how it became one of the most influential music publications ever. The seller hoped for $350, while Rick offered $300. They sealed the deal quickly, and the seller left thrilled, vowing not to lose his winnings in Vegas.
Got something to show you here today.
What's that?
We got a first edition Rolling Stone magazine.
It's still a big deal to get your picture on the cover.
Oh, it'd be great to get your picture on the cover of Rolling Stone.
I might buy copies for my mother if I did.
Next, the shop saw a piece of football rivalry history. Ohio State gold-filled player pendants, awarded only when Ohio beat Michigan. The seller explained their tradition and rarity, asking $2,500 for the pair. Rick admired the backstory, but reminded him that sports memorabilia is a niche market. Still, he was interested.
Well, I have a couple of these Ohio State pendants. They're awarded to the players when they beat Michigan.
Why do they look like pants?
Well, when they started the award, Ohio State had a long losing streak against Michigan.
Negotiations heated up. Rick offered $1,500. The seller pushed for $2,200, and finally, they settled at $2,000 flat. The seller left pleased, while Rick knew it would take time and the right buyer. But rare sports traditions like this always found a home eventually. Corey just shook his head, amazed by the deal.
Just about any metal just doesn't mix. Since they're only given to the players at Ohio, and only when they win, they're super rare.
Then came the high art moment. A woman brought in 2 Picasso etchings. paintings, Blue Dove of Peace and Poor Robbie. Corey joked they looked like something Chumlee could have drawn, but Rick reminded him that Picasso's name alone carried weight. The seller said they belonged to her mother, and she was hoping for $1,000.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi. Hey, I wanted to see if I can sell these Picassos.
Okay.
I'm gonna go look around.
So where did you get these?
They belong to my mom. I'm selling them for her.
Rick called in Brett, his fine art expert. Brett confirmed both were real. The Dove piece was a mass-produced lithograph worth only $100 to $200, but Poor Robbie was an early edition on Arch's paper, making it more valuable. Brett valued it up to $1,500 in a gallery. The seller lit up at the news, hopeful for a good payday.
Earlier, a woman brought in 2 Picasso etching. Anything Picasso can be valued. I invited my buddy Brent down to the shop to tell me what these things are worth.
Rick, though, wasn't paying gallery prices. He offered $600. The seller countered at $900, then $750. Rick stood firm, and they landed at $650. She wasn't thrilled, but agreed, knowing her mother would still be proud. Rick smirked. He had snagged a Picasso at pawnshop prices.
I'm looking to get 1,000.
1,000 I couldn't do. This one I wouldn't want. It's just too common. And this one right here.
For comic relief, Corey bet Rick $100 that Chumlee could fool the old man with his own Picasso sketch. Chum tried, but when the old man saw it, he called it pathetic. Corey argued it looked like Poor Robbie, but the old man shut them all down, ordering them back to work. Chum looked crushed, and Rick laughed all the way to the register.
All right, Pops. I bet you $100 that Chumlee can draw something just as good as Poor Robbie. No, he couldn't. I can bet you can draw something and the old man can't tell the difference.
The action shifted to classic cars when Rick and the old man went to see a 1931 REO Flying Cloud. The seller wanted $40,000, but Rick noticed it needed a full restoration. Still, the car's connection to Ransom E-Olds and REO Speedwagon gave it historical weight. Rick called in Danny Coker to give a second opinion.
What do you got here?
I got a 1931 REO Flying Cloud.
They put a lot of style when they built cars back then. It's like a box.
Danny inspected it carefully, pointing out the drum brake innovation and solid structure. But it needed everything: paint, engine work, and interior. Danny valued it at $8,000 in its current condition, with restoration costs up to $30,000. Fully restored, maybe $35,000. Rick offered $8,000, but the seller refused, saying it was worth far more.
He's asking 40 grand, so I called in my buddy Danny to see if it's worth buying.
What's going on, Dan?
Morning, guys. How you doing? I'm one of those guys that's just obsessed with cars, looking at them, taking things apart.
Disappointed, the seller walked. Rick admitted he would have overpaid without Danny's advice. Classic car deals are risky, and this time, the smart move was letting it go. The old man agreed, saying sometimes keeping your wallet shut is the best deal of all.
Is it worth fixed up?
In this market, everything is so soft right now. If it was a 100% fully restored museum piece, you're looking probably around.
Finally, a man brought in a computerized breathalyzer machine from the 1980s, coin-operated and complete with a bottle of Jack Daniels for testing. Rick explained how these machines helped curb drunk driving. They tested it, and sure enough, it worked, though Chumlee's results after a swig were hilariously off the charts.
That hit it all home. This might have seemed like a toy at the time, but it very well might have saved someone's life. Well, let's do a control test. Chum, you want to test this thing out?
The seller asked $200. Rick countered at $100. The seller came back at $150, and they settled at $125. The seller left satisfied, and Rick chuckled about the ridiculousness of pawn shop finds. Corey reminded him it might sell to collectors for its retro charm.
We gotta see what he wants for it. It's doubtful anyone will use it again. The classic 1980s computer voice makes it a great collectible. What do you want for it?
I'd like a couple $100 for it.
By the end, Rick had scored a Picasso etching, landed sports memorabilia, passed on a risky REO car, and bought an oddball breathalyzer. The episode had everything: art, cars, sports, and comedy. From Picasso to Pink Floyd ads and Rolling Stone, this was Pawn Stars at its eclectic best.
Chum could draw Picasso and get it by the old man. Chum says he's ready, so now I want my $100. Grandpa, you know Picasso, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's horrible. It's a copy of a very common.
The episode kicks off with a seller who brought in a pair of vintage F-16 test pilot flight suits and some memorabilia. He explained he worked for General Dynamics for 35 years, retiring as a mechanic. Rick admired the F-16's history, but clarified these weren't combat suits, just civilian test pilot gear. The seller asked $500. Rick countered at $300, and after some back and forth, they shook hands at $325.
Aircraft memorabilia that I wanted to see if I could do something with.
Okay. Looks like it might be tall enough for me.
You couldn't fit in there with a chainsaw and a blender, son.
Next, the drama shifted to presidential history when a man came in claiming he had a tape recording of President John F. Kennedy. He explained he worked at the Pentagon and accidentally ended up on a call with JFK during the 1963 Birmingham riots. On the tape, JFK was audibly angry about miscommunications with the Army War Room. The seller wanted a jaw-dropping $100,000 for the recording.
Conversation that I had with John F. Kennedy.
Really?
Yes, sir. And in it, he is attempting to do something, and he's rather angry about it.
Rick was intrigued but cautious. He brought in Mark Hall Patton from the Clark County Museum to examine it. Together, they listened to JFK's voice on the reel-to-reel tape, where Kennedy snapped at staff over delays and wrong numbers. Rick admitted it was unique to hear JFK frustrated, but Mark explained such recordings were publicly available in the National Archives.
Birmingham, this could be a real valuable piece of history, but I want to listen to it. Hey, Mark, Rick, I got a guy here. He's got a tape of JFK yelling at him. It's on a reel-to-reel. You have one that'll work with a reel-to-reel?
Mark clarified that this wasn't a one-of-a-kind artifact, but rather part of existing collections. That crushed the seller's $100,000 hopes. Rick politely declined, suggesting the seller pass it on as a family keepsake. The man left disappointed, realizing he didn't own the rare presidential treasure he thought he had. Rick walked away glad he hadn't spent a dime.
That's neat. That's an interesting piece. He was not happy.
Would this be considered public property?
By mid-62, they were recording in the White House.
Comic relief arrived in the form of Chumlee. He tried recording the old man being mean to him, planning to prove his abuse. The old man confiscated Chum's phone, mocking him endlessly. Corey piled on with insults, saying working with Chum was like babysitting a toddler. The prank backfired, and Chum's plan ended in humiliation.
The old man likes to abuse me when no one's around, so I'm gonna prove it by recording it. I don't even think he knows phones can record video.
Later, nostalgia hit when a seller walked in with a vintage chemistry set from the 1930s. He recounted how it taught him to make gunpowder as a kid, which nearly blew up his neighborhood. Rick laughed but noted safety concerns with chemicals inside. The seller wanted $150. Rick offered $45, the seller countered $100, and they finally settled at $60.
I sell you a chemistry set. I got it for my 10th Christmas present.
Well, you must have got this thing a long time ago.
Everything in my life was a long time ago.
Rick explained these sets were fascinating collector items but tricky to sell due to the dangerous contents. The seller shrugged, happy to get it out of his closet, and joked he definitely wouldn't be passing it down to his grandkids. Rick chuckled, saying he'd have to keep Chumlee far away from it.
Sodium phosphate, powdered zinc, that was a good one. That added a lot of zest to the whole system.
The highlight came when a seller brought in an early 1800s sterling silver baby rattle made by Gorham. It had mother of pearl, a whistle, and engraved nursery rhyme scenes. Rick admired it, but quickly spotted problems. The hallmark looked off, the soldering showed green corrosion, and the engraving seemed poorly done for Gorham standards.
It's a baby rattle from the early 1800s.
A baby rattle.
It's sterling silver, got a whistle, and some bells on it. The kids would tease on this end of the pearl.
Rick explained it was likely a reproduction with only $10 worth of silver. The seller had believed it was a rare original worth hundreds, maybe more. Rick passed on the deal, telling him to get his money back from whoever sold it. The seller left skeptical, insisting it was real, but Rick trusted his expertise.
Maybe, maybe not.
If you were rich in the 1800s and want to flaunt it, this is what you spent your money on. Nothing says status like a silver baby rattle, and Gorham made some of the finest silver items on the market.
Meanwhile, the old man and Corey clashed with Chumlee over his phone again. The old man threatened him, Corey teased him, and Rick had to step in, saying you can't just steal an employee's phone. Still, the old man grumbled and handed it back reluctantly. Chum was embarrassed, but everyone else just laughed.
Are faking baby rattles?
People fake everything, okay? It looks like it's been reproduced by somebody. It just doesn't look right.
Okay.
By the end, the episode delivered a mix of military memorabilia, presidential drama, childhood danger toys, and even a fake silver rattle. Rick scored small, avoided a $100,000 disaster, and kept his team in check. As always, the old man's grumpiness stole the show, proving some things in the pawn shop never change.
at Unique.
Hey guys, what's going on, son?
He took my phone earlier today, and he won't give it back.
The episode kicks off with a quirky item, a 1910 Reynolds envelope sealer. The female seller explained she picked it up at an estate sale and wanted $400 to buy her husband a birthday gift. Rick laughed at the idea of people sealing thousands of bills by licking them before machines like this existed. He admired the gold leafing, noting how even office gear back then was stylish.
This is a Reynolds 1910 envelope sealer.
Okay.
Rick asked how it worked, and the seller demonstrated feeding envelopes through rollers. Rick admitted it was neat, but more of a decorator piece than a collector's item. He offered $100. The seller pushed for $150. Rick countered at $125. After playful haggling, they agreed at $130. She left happy not to drag it home, and Rick scored a unique antique.
The sticky part of the envelope would be here, fed through this way.
Through there?
Yeah, come out.
Next up, a man presented a 1942 Moby Dick comic book. He bought it for his dad, who collected whaling books, but Dad wasn't impressed. It was just a comic. Now he wanted $600. Rick explained classic comics were created to introduce kids to literature. They ran for decades and became collectible. The seller admitted he was nervous because his copy showed wear.
It's pretty cool. What do you know about it?
Well, the classic comic folks decided that there would be a strong market for the classic books.
Rick brought in Paul, his comic book expert. Paul confirmed it was a first edition. The 10-cent price on the cover proved it. He noted a rare variant existed, but this wasn't it. Despite edge damage, the colors were strong. He valued it around $550. Not bad, but shy of the seller's $600 dream.
A guy came in the shop with an original Moby Dick classic comic. It's pretty cool, but I have no idea what it's worth, so I called Paul in to help me out.
Negotiations began. The seller asked for $500 to move it quickly. Rick countered at $350, explaining he took the resale risk. They finally agreed on $375. The seller was satisfied. He recovered his investment and could buy his dad a proper whaling book. Rick smiled, adding another quirky collectible to the shop.
All right, well, after hearing everything he had to say, how much are you willing to let it go for?
Well, I know you're going to need a little bit of room, so $500.
Later, Rick visited Derek at a downtown casino to see a Sigma Derby slot machine. In the 1980s, this horse racing slot let up to 10 people play together for quarters. Rick reminisced about playing them with friends, calling it one of the coolest machines ever. Derek asked $80,000, confident in its rarity. Rick had no clue if that was fair, so he called his expert Nick.
This was like the coolest thing in the world back in the 80s. Me and my buddies used to play this thing all night long.
Nick explained Sigma made unique machines in the 60s to stand out, and nearly every casino had a derby in the 80s. The catch, they broke constantly. This one, though, ran perfectly with all 10 stations working. Value in unrestored shape was $7,000, but in this condition, Nick said $30,000 to $40,000. Derek's $80,000 ask was way off.
Industry, you need to make machines that are not like everybody else is making. So he made this. And just about every major casino in town back in 1985 had one of these.
Rick told Derek he couldn't offer close to $80,000. There was no money to be made. Disappointed, Derek said he'd keep it on the floor since it drew crowds. Rick walked away, happy for the nostalgia but relieved he didn't overspend. Chumlee, meanwhile, blew Rick's money on the machine, winning quarters but losing more than he gained. Classic Chumlee chaos.
Did you want for this thing?
You know, for me, I needed 80.
That's not gonna happen. Well, I guess I can't make you an offer. There's just no money here.
Back at the shop, Corey handled a seller with a $1 bill supposedly signed by Ronald Reagan and Walt Disney. The man asked $4,300, claiming it was from Disneyland's 1955 opening when Reagan was the MC. Corey admitted it was cool but needed authentication. He called in Steve, the autograph expert.
Ronald Reagan was the MC for the opening of Disneyland.
Steve examined Reagan's slanted G and Disney's flowing script. Both matched authentic signatures from the 1950s. He confirmed they were real, but warned the bill's condition wasn't great. Value? About $3,000. The seller was crushed. It was far from $4,300. Corey offered $1,800, stretched to $2,200, but the seller refused. He decided to frame it and wait for a niche collector.
Guy came in with a $1 bill signed by both Ronald Reagan and Walt Disney.
In the shop, Chumlee bragged he'd be a better jockey than anyone. Rick rolled his eyes, saying he felt sorry for any horse carrying Chum. Corey piled on, joking Chum was the size of 4 jockeys. Chum posed with perfect form while everyone laughed. The banter ended the episode with humor, proving the shop's comedy is just as important as its deals.
I think he just wanted to get an idea what it was worth.
Chingy ching ching, count my scratch. Yeah.
By the end, Rick had scored an antique envelope sealer, landed a Moby Dick comic, dodged an overpriced Sigma Derby machine, and passed on a Reagan Disney bill. Add in Chumlee's jockey antics, and this episode packed history, nostalgia, and comedy into one wild ride.
Dude, jockey's got to be the easiest job in the world.
I'd be a better jockey than you guys.
Ha! You're the size of 4 jockeys.